All right, we see our friend Corey Capone on this call, and Corey, you don't look very jet lagged.
What's funny is I was like good all day, and like an hour ago, I started to get pretty tired, and I was like, man, I've been good all day, and I realized it's now 1:30 in the morning at Qatar. So hopefully I'm on my A game, but I'm a little out of it right now for sure.
What a fun experience! And this isn't your first World Cup, is it?
No, I got to go to Moscow for the last one. So that was really awesome, and this one was even better, I would say. But yeah, that was my first time going to that part of the world. So the last one was more, I guess, kind of eye opening, but this one was really cool.
Yeah, so this one's even better, even though you weren't allowed to drink any beer in the stadium. I mean, how does that add up? I don't understand.
I'll tell you what, we were kind of joking, like, when we weren't going to games, or we went to some afternoon games, and then at night we'd find like bars and stuff to watch games at, and it was fun. But I can't tell you the last time I went on a, week-long trip and didn't wake up hungover a single day. It was kind of great. And there was definitely times walking in, out of stadiums, even at the games, where we all kind of said, like, if people were drunk, there would have been a fight. There's like sober people close to fighting, and we were like, if they were drunk, there definitely would have been a fight.
Were you at the US Iran game?
Yes, yeah, we went to US England, US Iran, and then some other games in between.
Huh. Is the Iran US game, is that where people would have put on the boxing gloves?
You know what? The exact opposite. And I thought that too. I was like, this is going to be a very hostile environment. The Iranian fans were the nicest fans. The England fans were kind of jerks. They were trying to put up England flags down in the bottom of like the US fan section. But man, the Iranian fans were, and I didn't really think about it this way, but a lot of Iranians don't like their government. And so I don't think all of them have as many qualms with us as we may think. And we were walking out of there, and like, it was kind of tense walking out of the England-US game and people chirping. But walking out of the Iran game, I can't tell you, there's probably at least 5 of them that said like, hey, congratulations. Like, I hope you guys do well. They were like so nice. And I was a little surprised, but it was really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Great experience. And you just got back, so I appreciate you hopping on our call here today, because I'm not sure what time you got back, but again, I knew today would be a jet lag day for you.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate you guys having me, and I didn't get back too late, back to, a little normalcy today, just kind of playing catch up. But yeah, I appreciate you guys having me.
Oh, awesome. Well, I'm going to start off throwing some stats up. I mean, you're a pretty humble guy, so I don't think many people get this kind of information. So, Corey's kind of a big deal. Okay, so here's some stats. So, Money in the Bank, Corey has found a way to save over $600,000. So that's pretty good. That's not made, that's money in the bank saved. Org production is batting around $90,000 a week. So, he's an up and coming consultant here. I just heard that Tark, he's 1 month away from hitting a promotion to org consultant as well too. So it's exciting. 2023. We're hoping we set a record with org consultant promotions. Your average wire this year, you're pacing you're one of those $1 million guys. You're averaging $22,000 a week, for the year. So obviously you're checking lots of boxes. You're doing really well. So I'm just curious, what have you been focusing on? What have you been focusing on in 2022? What are you going to be focusing on in 2023?
Well, I appreciate the kind words, Jamie. And yeah, it's been slow and steady progress. Last few years, kind of coming back from COVID. I think that what I've really focused on the past 6, 8, maybe even 12 months is getting new, better, best systems in place. I think coming out of COVID, we have a lot of people doing a lot of different things. And so for the last year, I've been trying to figure out, what I think when it comes to recruiting systems and training and a lot of different things, what are the best, what are the Fulkersons doing, the Hagemans and the consultants that are promoting out and, building orgs, what are they all doing, and kind of putting that together. And now I feel like I've got some pretty good systems in place. And so the next 6 or 12 months is like getting that stuff down pat. And I feel like this always happens, and I guess kind of 2, 3, 5 year cycles. But I feel like over to NRG, it was like 12, 18 months of doing nothing but like copying Bruinger, who started the campaign. And we built it up to 30 guys, did really well, promoted out. And then 2, 3 years later, it was like, let's revamp some things, do it again, teach everybody the new systems. And we're kind of coming on the tail end of promoted 2 first gens out, have a guy in production, should get him out pretty quickly. He's been with me a while, so he shouldn't be an assistant manager that long. And then once we get him open and running, it's like, okay, now we'll have a 6, 12, 18 month run of kind of just doing exactly what we're doing. And then another 12, 18 months down the road from here, it's like, okay, let's again figure out what's new and what's working and kind of plug and play.
Great. I was asking you, you know, what you, and from your perspective, what you believe that your strengths are, and you said recruiting. So I want you to touch on that. Like, okay, so what is it? You know, I don't know how you'd grade yourself as a recruiter, but, you know, I assume an A or A+ in the world of recruiting. And the other strength is you believe that you're a great utility player. You can do whatever the company's demanding of you in that particular situation. So can you touch upon those strengths?
Yeah, I heard Brandy talk about this a while ago. I think she kind of did like a Brandy or Sessions, org thing. And she said, I didn't have to teach Michael Sessions to be Michael Sessions. I had to get him to start. And then I just kind of had to show him how we do things. But like he was doing things in his first, second week that, some leaders that are there years don't do because he was Michael Sessions. And so I've always kind of taken that to heart. And so I really pride myself on being able to start, great people, good work ethic, good attitudes, and, all different shapes, sizes, backgrounds. But the more high quality people I can get in my company, the easier it is to run my company. It's a lot less stressful. You just got people that are sharp and on top of details and get it and work hard. And when you can attract, you don't have to have 1 million, but if you got 3, 4, 5, 6 of those guys in your office at one time, and they all manage 3, 4, 5, 6 people themselves, all of a sudden you got, a 30-man office. So I think that the expression is you can't attract a 9 if you're a 7. So I try and make sure myself, I have really great habits in place. I'm prepared. I'm organized. I want to wow somebody. And I even talked to my, managers I promoted out this year. I remember being 24 and 25 and people, not always having the most respect for me, and probably rightfully so, because I, interview people and even have new hires that were, 30, just had more life experience than me. And so, I was talking to, my one girl, Monica, we're kind of talking through this stuff. And I'm like, you need to have the attitude of every day when I show up in my business, I'm here to impress every person here. And if you do that day in and day out, that's when you get really freaking sharp people that no matter how old you are, your background, degree, no degree, whatever, people respect the hell out of you when you show up insane, when you're always reading a new book, when you're always sharing new stuff you've learned. I think that there's a good analogy I heard, I forget where it was from, but, they talked about how when Bill Gates was 19 and running Microsoft, he would go into meetings with 65-year-old guys and they'd be like, we're meeting with Microsoft. They go in and he's the only person sitting there. And they'd be like, is this a joke? Right. And, and then he would start talking. And after an hour with him, their skepticism turned to holy shit. If this guy is this sharp and this smart and can do all this stuff at 19, we're getting in at the ground floor. And that's the attitude that I try and teach a lot of my managers, because look, we're going to have the consultants and the more experienced people, but a majority of our managers are probably under 30, especially when I'm 32 building my org. So I got to learn how to get really good at coaching people through their 20s. And I try and teach them that Bill Gates analogy. You want people walking in where the adults you don't want them walking in like that, but they're naturally kind of going to. And then when every day you show up with a badass morning meeting and a badass leaders meeting, and your conversations with people are so crisp and prepared, and you run amazing one-on-ones, after people work with you for a week, they're like, holy crap, Like if this guy got this way working here, like I better stick around. And so I think that that's a really important thing. It's just, you are the recruiter. Your recruiter, as Wiggins would say, is your recruiting assistant, right? You are the recruiter. Your recruiter is your recruiting assistant. And you want to obviously get sharp people in the door, but then B, like, that's just the start of recruiting. Like, recruiting is keeping somebody around in their first 3-6 months as they're trying to figure things out. It's keeping your manager who's been there for a year and hasn't promoted out and is struggling, getting that guy to stick around. That's recruiting. And so I think that it's an ongoing, like, Michael Sessions is still recruiting me, right? That's still going on. Because, you know, let's say the Cincinnati Reds come to me and they say, not that this would happen, but like, they come to me and they're like, hey, we want to offer you this fat, cushy job. Sessions has had to have enough of an impact on me that I'm not going to like leave him. Right. So I think that it's important that you look at recruiting as an ongoing process. It's all about how you show up. And, you know, for the utility player part, I think that to be an effective manager, everybody's kind of got their own natural skills, abilities, strong suits, but you got to be a jack of all trades and know how to be able to play every part that there is. And what I mean by that is, like, when you've got 30 guys and the office is bumping, you got to be the dad at team night that's like, guys, let's not get out of hand. And you kind of leave early and you tell your top guys, like, make sure nobody does anything stupid. And then when you like promote out and some shit goes sideways and you go down to like 5, 6, 7 guys, you might be at team night ordering shots and getting people to like get the long, like, why do you have a long face on right now, dude? This is fucking team night. Let's have fun. You got to be able to do both of those things effectively. I'm not saying, obviously not saying be irresponsible, but it's like, you got to be the life of the party. You got to be the planner and the organizer. You got to be the white rabbit in the field. You don't have to be all those things simultaneously, but you've got to know how to play every role, and you got to be able to look at on a daily, weekly basis, what is my role today? So that's what I mean by like utility player.
That's great. That's great. And so again, if your company needs the pace setter, the white rabbit, you wear that hat. If your company needs you to kind of play the role of like entertainment events, you take that hat and wear it well. So I think that's great. I mean, you know, the one thing that strikes me, Corey, I mean, I get, obviously you're not in our org, but I feel like I talk to you as much, or in some cases more, than some of the people, you know, in my org. You're always looking to level up. You're always looking to be well-rounded. It's obvious to me that you want to be successful in marriage. I mean, you know, you and I were talking before you even have the current girlfriend that you have, and, you know, kind of talk through that. We talk about real estate all the time. So you're really pursuing really a well-rounded version of Corey Capone. You want to touch on that? Because again, you're not just calling with business questions, you're really calling about great life questions.
Yeah, you know, number one, I want to say thank you, Jamie. I look at you as somebody that's got an amazingly well-rounded life between your family, you know, career success, financial success, all that stuff. So I love coming to you and picking your brain for all of that stuff. Anybody that's building a Kobe Bryant basketball court in their house, I want to pick their brain and see, hey, how can I be doing that 10, 15, 20 years down the road for sure. So I appreciate just your example and mentorship and always being available for that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think if you guys are looking, I'll give you a really good podcast to listen to. It's Joe Rogan with this guy, Naval, Naval. It's probably my favorite episode of Rogan. And this guy is like a billionaire angel tech investor. I'd never heard of him before this episode. So sometimes it's cool when you haven't heard of a guest and then they end up, you guys' book right there? Sabs is holding it up. Guys, awesome. But
Naval Ravikant, he's fantastic.
Yeah, dude, he's amazing. But you know, the well-rounded life, and that's one thing he talks about, that kind of listening to his stuff. You know, I think there's 3 things that really everybody wants to be: happy, healthy, wealthy. right? I don't think there's anybody on earth that wouldn't want to be those three things. And you sometimes get people that, say, hey, money, not that important. But we live in things cost money, right? And I even talk about this every week in opportunity meetings. I think your health is more important than anything else. There's a Confucius quote that he actually uses, says the healthy man wants 10,000 things. A sick man wants just. So I think that your health is the most important thing. I don't know about you guys, but I don't trust my health insurance to cover shit that I want covered. And health care is expensive. So if you want to be healthy and you want your family and loved ones to be healthy, you probably should have a lot of money. I hope our healthcare system gets better. I wouldn't place money on it getting better in the next, 10, 15, 20 years. So if you want to be healthy and, again, be able to provide that for your family, I think that's important. And then, happy as well. Like, I don't think money's the key to happiness, but I think that it helps alleviate a lot of stress. I think that people ask me, like, what's the coolest thing that you've been able to do or trip, and I'm like, the coolest thing is like not worrying about my bills. Like, that is the coolest thing compared to anything else. Like, not having stress and anxiety about paying for my mortgage, paying for, again, something crazy happens and there's an unexpected bill that comes up with healthcare or something. Like, just most people in the US live worried about that stuff on a daily, weekly basis. And I jokingly ask my guys in the meetings as well, like, who in here wants a happy marriage one day? You'll see everybody raise their hand. How many people in the US or how many marriages ended divorce? It's like 50%. So I just like stand in the middle of the room and I'm like, sorry guys, right? Not to like neg people out, but to give them a little perspective. And then I ask, who knows what the number one reason for divorce is in the US? You got anybody know? You guys could probably see where I'm going with this, but it's finances. Number two is infidelity. So I jokingly tell people, making lots of money is more important than not cheating on your spouse if you want a happy marriage. And it's a joke, but statistically speaking, that's true. If I were dating, I think her name's Laura Walton, the heiress to the Walton fortune that founded Walmart. If I was dating her and I found out she cheated on me, I might look the other way. Just saying.
I think I know you well enough, Corey. You dump her. You dump her.
I probably would, but
you'll get your own millions.
But if you want a happy marriage and family, if you want to be access to healthcare, the best healthcare, you got to make a lot of money. And like, I don't think you should neglect the personal stuff, but I think throughout your 20s is the best time to get ahead with the financial career stuff. And so I spent from 23 till about 28, not worried about much of anything else besides getting ahead in my career. And I think it's, that might've been a little bit of a risk or a gamble, not getting into like really serious relationships. But the way that I looked at it was, even if I found the girl of my dreams at 25, I wouldn't have been able to give her the time, energy, and effort that I think she deserved. And again, there are different philosophies on that, but I was, before I, started here, I was going to go to law school, which means from 23 to 26, I'd been going to law school, paying $50,000 a year. I would have come out of law school, $150,000 in debt, working 80 hours a week. I had a pretty decent job, kind of like lined up with one of my friends. His dad's a big attorney in Pittsburgh, and I was going to work with them. But even doing that, you don't make a ton of money right out of law school. So it would have been like early to mid 30s before I was able to like provide for a family, actually be around. And I was willing to do that. So when I found this opportunity and I saw people in their late 20s with the freedom of time and money, I was kind of like, how does this work? Like, why is Ben, the guy that hired me, Ben Gallons, why is he 26 making, as much or more than the attorneys I knew at like 30? without, a master's, a doctorate. And as they kind of laid out the numbers of how much money these clients like AT&T and, Direct Energy was our client at the time, they pay for advertising and this, that, or the other, we're kind of a bargain for them. And so, they're willing to pay him handsomely. So it's like, this makes sense. And so, I stuck this out, but, kind of circling back to your well-rounded question, I was like, get ahead in my career in finances first and foremost for like 5 years. And at like 28, that was the year we promoted out like 3 or 4 offices, ran like $1 million business. And it took me a lot longer than, I think some people run like $1 million office their first year. Like, took me 2 years to get to management. And then like my first year in management was probably the worst year of my entire life. Like, no joke. I worked 80 plus hours every week. I'd go to the field 10, 12 hours on Saturday. And I was on a res schedule. So I'd be Monday through Friday plus Saturday. So 6 days a week, really, working 12 plus hours every single day. And I did not make any money. I mean, I made enough money to pay bills, but I literally didn't make enough money to pay bills for my office. I ended up closing. And I worked really hard, but I just didn't, I think in some aspects of my life, probably didn't have the maturity I needed. And I also, I think, was running on kind of broken systems. I think, as I mentioned, we kind of revamp and redo things. And I was like 3rd or 4th gen to a consultant. So the new stuff that he was doing wasn't necessarily trickling down to me. So I think I was kind of working I was trying to push a square around like it was a wheel. So it took a lot more energy and effort for me to, do some things that people were getting done pretty simply. But, thankfully I had a support system of people like Ken and Ben and Sessions that really cared about me. And they saw me working really hard, just that I didn't know what I was doing. So, I was offered to get help. I went on a retrain. And that was, I think, probably the best thing that ever could have happened to me, because at the time, obviously it wasn't fun. And I told you, worst year of my life, but like, I will never forget how much that year sucked. And so like, no matter how good things ever get, I've always got that like fear of loss in me of like, I never want to go back to this. And so, yeah, I think that working really hard your first 5, 7, 10 years of your career. And then as you start to have some success, for me, it was like late 20s. That's when I started thinking more about, the family side of things and relationships and settling down. But I think that not everybody, my path isn't going to be everybody's. And there's some people that might start this business married, there's different things, but, as Jamie said, well-rounded life, it's like financial and career success, family life, and just taking care of yourself, your health. So that's, kind of what I like picking people's brains on.
That's great. I've always described it in my household, right? There's 5 of us plus 2 dogs, but the wifey's at the top of the totem pole, right? If this is a totem pole here, I got the wife, you got the kids. And so I'm down at the bottom of this sucker. So I'm the least important in the house, but I'm the one holding all the weight on my shoulders. And I've looked at the business a lot like that too. Like, you can have a lot of more important things in life, like your marriage is more important, your family's more important, but having a good business is like the bottom of that totem pole that takes care of all those other things that are so important to you. So it sounds like you're definitely going down that same path. So that's great. We got a few minutes left. I'm just curious to hear you kind of call your shot, right? You're 32, you're young, you're really getting into the prime of your career. Like, you're just really starting to get good at what you're doing, and you got a lot of runway left. If you have to kind of look into a crystal ball, when you're 40 years of age, I don't know if you've even thought that far, what's life going to look like for Corey Capone at 40?
Yeah, I really appreciate that question. Well, hopefully, the one thing I love about this business and our business, or I guess just business and professional careers in general, is that, I have friends that are like professional athletes and stuff like that. And it's like, you got like until you're 32, 35, and then like your earning potential's done unless you're, doing outside ventures and other things. Where for us, it's like just keeps going up forever until because you're not going to like get worse, hopefully, at what you do. You're only going to get better. So I don't ever plan until I stop running an office. I don't plan on promoting out less than 2 or 3 people a year. And look, people turn over and do different things, and that's okay. It's part of the process. But, if you really want to set yourself up, 32, 8 years. Ideally, I'm going to have 15 to 20 first gens, promoted out. I don't know, probably 10 to 15 of them probably hopefully open at that point. And look, I think that you can do a couple things for people. You could be a good example, you can give good advice, and you can be supportive. People choose to be a consultant or not, right? Like Adrian's going to be a consultant. And so when I'm finding my people, helping them open their office, I'm going to be a good example. I'm going to give them good advice. I'm going to do this. But then I don't know out of those 15, 20 people I promote, how many of them are going to choose to be a consultant versus just run an office and do that for, a long time, do it for a few years, whatever. So, I think that it's going to depend on how many great people I can find and attract and keep around. But ideally, Adrian should, knock on wood, next 2-3 years here, be hitting the consultant mark, not that far behind me. And then I've got a lot of younger guys on my crew, which is great. And I really like working with them. And I've learned so much from working with a lot of these guys. Like Blake, I just promoted out. I love him. He and Monica, who I both promoted out this year, they're both consultant dreams, big picture. But ideally, I help all them get to consultant, but that's going to be their decision, not mine, right? So at that point, if I've got 15, 20 first gens, let's say, a third of them are really going to take the consultant path seriously, hopefully pushing 50 plus offices at least. And then, throughout 40s, I'd imagine hoping to get, towards the, 100 mark plus going into my 40s office wise.
And then you put a Kobe Bryant basketball court in your house. That's the play?
What's so crazy, Jamie, is I have so much appreciation for people like you and Brandy and Michael and Adam, just like the trailblazers, because, I'll be honest, I think that you guys had to do so much for us to get to where we are in this business right now. I think that what you had to do to be able to build that house with the Kobe Bryant basketball court in it, it's probably 4 times as hard as what I'm going to have to do. I truly believe that. And even with commission increases in the last few years, when Adrian was in my office and, we had Yannick and some other people, we were doing 600 plus enrollments on NRG. And at the time, commissions wise, that was 30K, 35K wires. We kind of lived there for a year. If we do 600 enrollments right now on the same program, it's a $45,000, $50,000 wire. And I think that's kind of, across all campaigns from 5 years ago. So even now I'm, this week I did a 20K wire, and in my head, my brain still works on production of this is what we're capable of. And we're doing this. So I'm this is dog shit and we suck, while I'm getting 20K wires. Cause I'm this isn't 20K wires work. This is, I think that, again, just a testament to the results that we've gotten for the clients, because we have the consultants and leadership of people like you. Things have gotten so good. I'm just excited to see where they're going to be, 5-10 years down the road as we continue to grow and get new clients and move into bigger things. My girlfriend works for State Farm, and she has her pitch that she does sales for them over the phone. And I've listened to her. I was helping her with her pitch, and I'm just dude, we would fucking murder this. We would be so much better than her guy, the guy Mike that runs the State Farm office. He's got only 4 or 5 guys in the office. She's part-time, I think another part-time, and 2 or 3 full-time. I don't know how much he makes, but I think he does decent. He's got a family. I'm dude, I would have 30 guys and we would be doing twice as many sales as them per rep. We would. So just thinking about where that could go 5-10 years down the road gets me really excited too.
Yeah, that's awesome. my wife and I were reminiscing because, we just had Thanksgiving. And so, yeah, back in the old days, Brandy, Michael, myself, all of us, for 4 weeks leading up to Christmas, we would all get on a road. It almost felt like we were part of the WWE or something like that, just traveling around. We do like 2 Christmas parties per week for 4 weeks. So every weekend I was out of town on the road, hitting Philly and then New York and then Dallas and Houston. Like, it ain't like that. Now I'm looking to go to 1 or 2 Christmas parties, so it's a little crazy. So, and one day when you're the old guy, everybody's going to take a look at you and say, Corey, I can't believe you started off going, door to door, commission only. That must have been real difficult. So yeah, the name of the game is that the business improves year over year and gets better for the next generation. No doubt about it. So Corey, we really appreciate your example. You're a stud in the business. We're looking for, I hope 2023 is your year for your promotion. We're all going to be there to celebrate with you, and keep up all the great work, Corey.
Thanks, man. Can I throw you one last message on the end here?
Go for it.
So with everything getting so much better, I think Wiggins made a really good point. I think he tried to drive this home for a few years. It's like when farmers got the tractor, they didn't stop working as hard. They got their farms bigger and planted more and grew more and harvested more. And I think that needs to be our mentality. My mentality, like I'm going to run a morning meeting tomorrow about, the Qatar trip and all this cool stuff we got to do. I flew first class both ways, which was the first time I've ever flown first class. It was freaking awesome. I had my own, kind of room, cubby type thing, laid down, slept. It was like a 15-hour flight home yesterday. It was amazing. But why I got to do that is because my first year as an owner, I talked about how hard I worked and I didn't do that well. My first Christmas Eve as an owner, I went out to the field for 10 hours on residential in the snow because I wasn't going home because I had too much work to do. I wasn't going to drive home for, a day or a half day or something. And so I was like, what else am I going to do? I went out. I knew everybody was going to be home. I knew they were going to feel bad for me probably because I was working on Christmas Eve. So I went out and made like $500 on residential on Christmas Eve. My first year as an owner, not as a rep in the field. And it's like, I don't want you to have to do that, but I want you to be willing to do that. And the universe loves homeostasis. It's like karma is another word for that. And it's like, if you want to have this amazing freaking life and do these awesome things, you better be willing to put yourself through the craziest shit. Because if you don't overcome insane obstacles and challenges and do things that people say that's crazy, you will never get to do things that people will say that's crazy. Right. So I'll leave you guys with that.
Yeah. Great message. Thank you, Corey. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you guys.
See you guys.